So welcome. It's unfortunately this is the first Kienle meeting that I've been involved with that Larry has not been able to come, but he is here in spirit, and we're taping this so that I or some other people can come to his place at Masonic Village and show him the goods. So I really appreciate you coming. If you haven't got anything to eat, please feel free to do that. I wanted to start out by, just for the student schedule, talking a little bit about the Kienle groups. I think you may remember from past Kienle Center meetings that we, last year we did an intervention in the third year, which was kind of a first pilot of a humanities program in third year, which involved students getting backstory interviews on patients and then debriefing those interviews with a faculty member. And we're doing a qualitative study of some of that. We have some of we're in the middle of analyzing some of those tapes. I think there were a lot of good things about it, but logistically it was difficult. Students had a hard time hooking up with their faculty members, and there was a lot of commotion about the best way to approach that, and some misunderstandings about it, and we decided we'd wait until we analyzed some more about the program before we decided where to go with that individualized approach. But in the meantime, the other part of the humanities curriculum that we've been looking forward to starting in association with Integrated Science Fridays were something we're calling Kienle groups. And this is groups of students who get together from 1 to 1:45. They come back to the medical center every other week for their integrated science curriculum, which starts at 2 o'clock, and we reserve the first 45 minutes or so of that time at 1 o'clock for groups to get together and talk about what's going on in their clinical services and debrief those experiences. The groups are organized by blocks, so they have 4 blocks in the third year. One is medicine, family medicine, one is OB-Peds. They're all 12-week blocks. One is neuropsych and some other rotations, and one is surgery and some elective rotations. So the students stay together in a group for 6 sessions during those 12-week blocks, because they're every other week. And one of the things I'd be interested in your input in, and actually the students as well who've gone through it, my goal when we first set it up was to have the same group stay together for the entire year. And if possible, even have it be related to the humanities groups that were together in the first part of the curriculum before the clerkships. But for a variety of logistical reasons, I was kind of overruled on that because of what was going on the rest of the afternoon. And there are some problems with people going up to State College who were in a group, or people being off in other away rotations like the underserved rotation, which would make the groups, would change the groups anyway. I want to revisit that this coming year, though, and hopefully if there's enough sentiment or enough feeling that this would be a good thing, especially from the students, then I think I'd like to try to do that. The students, 24 students who are up at State College, are staying in the same 8-person groups through their whole year. So that's a little bit of a pilot going on there of that approach. But in any case, what I handed out was a kind of an orientation to these Kienle groups, which is given to the students and the faculty. There's a little blurb that's just intended for the faculty at the end about, not talking too much, but we didn't hand that to the students, but it's kind of I'm sure they've experienced faculty talking too much. And we really wanted to keep it kind of loose. And when we've had some faculty meetings, the faculty who've done this, we've had a lot of terrific faculty sign up to do this. We've had really no trouble getting faculty or substitute faculty, which is pretty remarkable on a Friday afternoon. But, and some people have done it and say, I want to do it again, and they've kind of volunteered for more blocks during the year. But the idea is to give students a chance to, and I was going to say at the faculty meeting, the faculty kind of resisted the idea of putting more structure into this in some way. So what we try to do is give students a chance to talk about what's going on with them. Have there been any dramatic events? And we've also tried to incorporate any connections or backstories that they've gotten on patients when they have their, in the course of their clinical rotations. And that that's been, I think, a pretty productive source of conversation for a number of groups. And then, as needed, or as an adjunct, and maybe stimulated by the conversation that's already happened, we have some what we call trigger questions. I adapted these from a colleague of mine at Case Western Reserve who was here a few months ago, Kathy Kelly, changed and added some, but I think some of them I think are particularly useful to kind of get conversation going if it's not happening. I'm also interested in any input you all might have as to additional questions or changes in these questions that you think might be helpful, things to talk about. In the meantime, we have two students, Al and Matt, who are on your program there, and they both volunteered to come and talk about their experience in the groups up to this point. I hesitate a little bit to ask Al because he's been in my group, but he seemed like he always had some really interesting things to say, and I can tell you that from my point of view, it's really remarkable the kinds of things that bubble up in these conversations. There's a certain amount of, sharing experiences and war stories and this complaining, but there's also a lot of really important stuff that happens. So if you just want to say something about your experience, that'd be great. And you want to stand up around here so you're in the camera here, so Larry can see you.
First time I've been on camera. I'm Matt, so I'm one of the third years. The Kienle groups have been a really great experience for me, for sure. I think they third year is definitely an isolating year in our education because you're kind of off on your own, doing a lot of different things, and it's easy to kind of think that you're alone in a lot of things, or a lot of the experiences that you have. And you think, everyone's going through different things, everyone has different preceptors, everyone has different mentors, so you kind of think, oh, this experience probably only happened to me, or this experience didn't happen to anyone else. But these groups really help remind you that no one is alone, that a lot of that you're not going through anything alone in this, this definitely tough year. So I think that's been really helpful, and even just some stories that people share are really not only enlightening, but really help you translate their experiences and kind of remind you of things that happen to you and you can share. So I think they've been very, very well received, I think, in our class, and it's been great to kind of come back and debrief about all the experiences we've had. So, and not just in experiences, but just moving forward into kind of clinicians we want to be. For example, my group has, especially in the medicine block, has talked a lot about mentors that we've really appreciated, or experiences we've had with teachers that have really impacted us, not only residents and attending physicians. And our preceptor, Dr. Haydit, and also not only good experiences, but bad experiences. So he asked us, he's like, so how many residents did you think as third years thought that they would be, terrible residents when they were residents? And he's like, no one would have raised their hand when they were third year. So you really have to remember the experiences that you had with good teachers and bad teachers, and kind of shape that into the residents you want to be. And my group, we just kind of compiled all the experiences we've had with really good residents as to what kind of teachers we want to be when we're in that role. So we can look back on that and remind ourselves, what we said as third years, or what thing that someone said to us that just really made us feel great. Like even a resident saying, I'm here to make you look good. Even just something as simple as that, or something as simple as having them introduce themselves to you instead of you having to kind of be like, oh, hi, I'm working with you today, my name's Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but even something as simple as that, reminding us that in our future years as a resident, I think is really helpful. So we made a Google Doc actually in my group, so that's going to be something that I'll probably look back on when I'm a resident. So.
Yeah, the way I look at them is I feel like, at least for me, they kind of have two functions. One is, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Alvaro, I go by Al. I'm third year. And I think one is the coping part. So kind of like what Matt was talking about, it just helps you with dealing with how third year is, and the classes and the changes and all that. So I look forward for the groups, because it's the 1 hour that perhaps I have control of. Like I don't have to try to impress anybody or learn or anything. I'm just, let it out and with people that are with me. So that's part of the complaining and all that stuff. But I think that's healthy, and I think, I don't know if that's the exact goal of the group, but I think that's an important part of it. And the other part is the humanistic part. And I think, and that applies to, life in general. Like things go so fast, and if you don't have time to reflect, then you wouldn't put your thoughts together. And sometimes those ideas kind of like they just go away. And having time to reflect and sit and think and say it out loud and hear other people saying it really helps you like solidify that experience as humans experiencing the care, which is very different. Like I was this week on the NICU, and it was tough. And I would like to share that with somebody. And I don't want to talk about like sick little babies with like, it's just like experience is just nice to have. And the other thing that is important is that we won't be able to experience everything because we different rotations, different places. But just being with a group of people helps you learn what other people are learning in terms of the professional experience and the humanistic experience, and then you learn from that too. So I think, I'm a huge fan, and I'm not saying it because I'm no, not really, it's fun time. Some people, and I've been in that boat before, I feel sometimes they feel as a little too often, because sometimes a week a lot of things happen, sometimes not a lot of things happen, right? And we're tired and stuff, so sometimes I felt personally that sometimes was a little too often with the integrated science too. It feels broken sometimes because I'm in the medical home, so that's one afternoon, and then other afternoon, and then sometimes you are 1 week or 2 weeks in one place, so you feel that sometimes you're barely there. But I feel that's a fair price to pay.
Any questions? Or?
Yeah, I have a couple. So how many sessions have you had this far?
We have about 4 every.
So you've had 4 up to date, 4 days?
Well, they had 6 this block. And
Okay.
Yeah, they're 6 per block, so this is their third block? No, second block. Second block.
So you've had multiple sessions now?
Yeah.
But not always with this. The first block with a different group.
Okay.
This group.
Okay.
Sometimes we have back-to-back, or so.
The first block, there was one back-to-back,
Okay.
but they're every other week generally.
Okay. And was there a, I don't want to use the word learning curve, but going from the first session you had with the first group that you were with to the second or third sessions, how would you characterize if you will, the level of discourse that you had once you had kind of gotten used to the group and you've had a chance to maybe feel comfortable as a group discussing sometimes uncomfortable things? Well, tell me about it.
I think that it's a little bit, but not much. Since now we're third years, we've done a lot of group. We're here, so we've done a lot of group work and learning how to integrate ourselves with a lot of different groups. Like for PBL, we learn how to adapt to different groups and are very comfortable with our classmates, such we've spent 2 years with them so far. So I think there's maybe a little bit of a learning curve with you're comfortable with sharing, but I think, especially the groups I've been so far, it's very rare that there's anyone in my class right now that I wouldn't feel comfortable sharing something with. Okay. So, especially just because I've been here. So, but maybe definitely a little bit, but it's not a large thing. Okay. It wouldn't be a large curve.
Okay. So my follow-up question is, you have an opportunity in a formatted way to do some reflection collectively. Between sessions, do you utilize that to do some self-reflection? One of the things we don't do is to every now and then pull off the side of the road and ask ourselves, where have we been and how do we get from point A to point B? And what are we going to do next? Is a part of this experience allowing you to kind of on your own to periodically ask yourself those questions, or was that not something that is a constant with you?
I feel that's, for me personally, I think that's the biggest plus of these groups, because it's a space we have and it's like mandatory, so you force yourself to reflect. And I think if we didn't have that space, very few of us will do it. And very few of us will have the opportunity to think back and remember things maybe we don't want to remember, but it's important to remember and comment on.
And I think like you have experiences and you're like afterwards you'll be like, oh, this is something I'm definitely going to share with my group this week or next week. So I think it does kind of help you. And then even in the aftermath, you kind of think, oh wow, I got some great thoughts from other people and kind of how you originally processed the situation that you shared. So definitely, I think it does spur some self-reflection outside the groups as well.
And I think it's interesting to see how people progress throughout the rotation. So I think if we had the same groups throughout the year, I think it would be very interesting to see how, some people that like a rotation very much, how they contribute when they don't like a rotation very much, and see that progression and that change. I think is interesting to see, even from the, even the professional, like specialty preferences and things like that. I think that's would be a value of longitudinal.
So you all have any opinion about groups staying the same all year versus switching every block? Is it, and the reality would be you'd be with the people who are doing all the blocks rather than just your block. So that's one difference, and then you'd still be, and you'd be with the same group. So.
I don't like what Dr. Davis is asking. I don't think there's too much of a I don't think there's too much of like a curve or like an uncomfortableness to begin with. But I'm fine with the way it is, I guess. But I don't know how it would be the other way. I don't think it would be bad the other way either, I guess, because I don't think there would be a group that I would feel uncomfortable.
I think that the connection sometimes, and Matt and I, we're roommates. So I
didn't know that when I
But we were in the same anatomy group at the beginning in first year, and we joke, some of the best friends you make are your first group. So I think like if you could make it work that at least some of those people would be in the anatomy group, I think that will take it to a different level, because you have gone through so much with those group of people that they'll be very cool. But then, having third year as solid group, it'll be kind of like, sometimes, most of us are comfortable with each other, but there are people that connect better with other people, right? So if you have a group that is not as good, then you're stuck with that group, in a way. And if you're in a good group, then you're lucky you, right? But if you're changing, at least you know you're changing. But if you can make it with people who probably close to you, then that will be a lot better, I feel.
I think there's also something to all being in the same block. I think it does. I think if everyone was on separate blocks, it'd be a little different, because
It'd be harder to relate.
Yeah.
Even though we're Pete's kind, and I guess like you're talking about different, like, oh, this person is your Pete, this person is your behind, but we don't really know. But I guess, yeah, it's a tough question. I think it's not cut.
That's helpful. I will say that I think the groups allow a space for, to a certain extent, people to hold a mirror up to themselves and their own experience, but also to hold a mirror up for us to what's going on, at least for me, because it's not all, it's not all fun and the way we would hope it would be on clinical services, and we've always known we have work to do, but some of the stories that are coming out are stories that we're really not proud of, and we need to do better. And I had an experience with one of the students that I talked to last year for the backstory program. She was a terrific student. In the spring of the year, she said to me that she finds herself less and less inclined to ask patients about their backstories as the year goes on. And what she was describing was what's been well described in the literature is this kind of decline in empathy or whatever that goes on with students, particularly in third year. And it's heartbreaking to see that, and our hope is that, given this environment, we might begin to make some kind of inroads into that. It may be that next year that we'll have the opportunity to do this more often than every other week. They're talking about some possible changes to the integrated science curriculum and having it be more regular, and then that would give us the opportunity to do more Fridays. I can say that the comments, we get feedback every week, and the comments from students are about 90% very positive. The comments that come through, maybe 95%. You know, occasionally a person says, I don't know why we're doing this, or something like that. But considering the usual breakdown of a third of students are going to ask that question, I don't know why we're doing this, about whatever it is we do in medical school. You know, to me, it's a pretty good batting average. So, anyway. Any other questions or thoughts? And for you all, if you take a look at this, if you have ideas or suggestions, particularly for triggers or for ways to shape this, I'd love to hear them. I mean, it'd be great to have this be an organic kind of ongoing process. All right, gentlemen, thank you. Matt has a shelf exam tomorrow. So do you have a shelf exam too?
Friday.
Oh, good luck.
Get through that way out.
Okay, so we have two other students who are here to give us some background on their experience with the Global Health Program, which is a major kind of part of the Kienle Center budget. And I guess I wasn't sure what to think about it when I first took this over a few years ago, but I've become a big believer in this. So Jordan and Celeste are here to kind of talk about some things, so, about their experience anyway.
Hi everyone, thank you for inviting us in. I just have a PowerPoint I'm just going to pull up. And I asked Jordan to give me a little nod if I'm taking too much time because, yeah, it should be open. Yeah, that one, perfect. Okay, cool. So this is something I'm really excited about and really passionate about. So if I'm taking too much of your time, Jordan's gonna give me a little nudge. So I went to Zambia this summer, and this is kind of my thank you to the Kienle Center because you supported a lot of my trip. And part of my project was to distribute cameras, and this was partly thanks to Dr. George for kind of inspiring me to take what originally started out as an idea for a photo essay kind of to the next level and be able to bring cheap digital cameras to individuals that I met there and have them show me a little bit of their life through photographs. So you'll see mixed in a little bit of photographs that I took just to put a little context in, but for the most part they're pictures of folks that I met through the program that I was working in. And so what I really want people to take away from this is that they represent the everyday lives of people that I've met that I now can call friends of mine, and that they all work within HIV and AIDS education, treatment, prevention in some aspect. And the photos are, I asked them, the assignment was to just show me what you do day to day or what your community looks like. So the first person is Boyd, and I actually just spoke to him on the phone today, and I hadn't spoken to him since I got back, so this was really exciting. He is an actor, and he does performances that are educational performances on HIV and AIDS, early pregnancy, how to practice safer sex, transmission of sexually transmitted infections, and he finished secondary school, so that's about high school level of education, and he leads these kind of Q&As after. This is a session where he did a performance for community members that have friends or family in the hospital, and so while they're waiting outside cooking meals for their friends or family in the hospital, he holds weekly sessions where he has a different topic, whether it's childhood sexual abuse or HIV and AIDS. And so I was really struck by it. At the end of one of these classes that Boyd was holding, the Q&A lasted for at least an hour, and people had all kinds of questions about basic things about transmission, and Boyd did an exceptional job explaining and teaching, and that pretty much through his own self-education. So he's someone that who really impressed me. And so VCT is the voluntary counseling and testing that they offer. And it's this whole concept of bringing free testing and making it open and decreasing stigma. And they've had really high successes. And this is an example of a primary school that we went to where Boyd and his troupe of actors also performed at. And this is Patrina, so she has pictures later on. And so this is a picture Boyd took of his grandmother and his cousins. And then he had a video of his grandmother walking towards the camera, kind of describing how excited she was to be filmed. So part of the project is that I had all the photos that they took printed, and I'm going to be sending them back with somebody so that they'll actually have the tangible photographs to present to their friends and share that kind of exchange. But I also left the cameras with them, and he told me that he has a lot of pictures for me to see. So, and these twins were born while we were there, and their names are Cholwe and Jabota, which mean good and luck in Tonga. And this is a friend of his, little baby, and this is his mom is feeding the baby Nshima, which is like everyone eats Nshima every day, 3 meals a day. It's a cornmeal mush. And this is his wife with his mom and a friend of theirs right after she gave birth in the hospital. And this is someone that, just a local worker from the area, and these are folks making bricks, which is a very common sight to see. They're made from termite mounds. And then Patrina is the next woman, and so she does this. She's also a performer, and so she took some similar kind of settings. And then she also took a ton of wonderful photos of her family, and I believe that this is a cousin of hers, or like a niece or nephew. Everyone's kind of a cousin, so you don't really know. But this is Melvin, her son, right before going to school. It was a chilly, probably like 60 degrees that morning, so he had his winter coat on. And these are more family photos. And this is Boyd's kids right there in the neighbor. And she got a snapshot of Cholwe just a few days after he was born. And so she sells fritters in the market because all of the work that they do is volunteer. They don't get paid at all for what they do as performers. And so you can usually find them at the market selling things like fritters and whatever they can get their hands on. The next person, Maureen, is a little bit different story. She's an older than them, and she leads the HIV and AIDS voluntary counseling and testing clinic in a different town, close to Macha, where we revisited on a monthly basis. And so this is the road that you take to get to the town. That's what most of rural Zambia, where I was, looks like. And these are the women waiting outside to go to the clinic. And this is what the inside of the clinic looks like. There's all kinds of flyers. This is their like kind of HIV testing setup, and this is their roster. They all write everything out by hand, and then we collect all the data and compile the numbers. And this is Sarah, a woman who is functions as a nurse at the clinic. And so these are Maureen's photos that she took. Those were mine, and this is Sarah. And Maureen's friend took this photo of her, and she's clearly a very significant part of the population, just kind of offering her help. This is her sister, as not only as an educator on HIV and AIDS, but a lot of support for the orphans that are there. And she also feeds her family, and I'm sure many others. And this is a pile of dishes that she has left. And these kids are going through maze, and there's a football match that she took photos of people watching at. And so that's it. I just wanted to share that with you as a thank you, and hopefully looking forward for students that are going to Matcha next. We hope that, or I hope that somebody might be interested in picking up Boyd and Patrina's interest in theater and video education, because they would really like to do a project to kind of continue the education for the community. Since they don't have any financial support, it's very hard for them to continue as volunteers. So it's a little bit in limbo at the moment, but thank you.
Thank you. Jordan, do you have something? So there's another group going And there will be another group going next summer.
Sorry, that's not yours. Yes, there's another group going next summer, and their projects are to be determined. But Boyd said he would love to do a project, so it's in the works.
All right, hi, my name is Jordan Tribbiano, and while Celeste gave you a glimpse into her personal project, what I decided to do to mix it up a little bit is just tell you about the Ecuador site, for those of you that may not know what is available through the Global Health Scholars Program. So to give you an idea of what happened for the 6 students who went to Ecuador this summer, we were there for 6 weeks. As a general overview, 4 of the 6 weeks we were there were part of the structured global health program for the site. We spent 2 weeks, let's see if the pointer will get here, in a suburb right outside of Quito, the capital, which was more of a wealthier setting. And then we went and spent 2 weeks in Zumbawa and Kilupungo, which are up in the Andes Mountains, and it's a community of more of an indigenous population. And unique to the Ecuador site, each of the wonderful sites offered through the program has its own benefit. But for Ecuador in particular, we lived with host families in those 2 settings. So we got to live with sort of a well-off urban family in one setting, and then a more impoverished family up in the mountains, to see the contrast between the 2, which I think gives you a very unique experience. This is my host family here. I lived with Janie and with the Kuchipati family. So to summarize our trip, we did clinical shadowing in 4 different settings, a mix of rural and urban, a mix of public and private. So I think we got a pretty good scope of what healthcare and healthcare services look like in Ecuador. And then we did some community improvement projects as well. Each person sort of took something that they were interested in and offered that to the community, specifically when we were in Zumbawa and Kilupungo. And accumulated in a public health fair. Just a picture of this here, which is Justina was doing a project on vision care. A few pictures here from our first 2 weeks in Quito. Here we are in one of the public hospital, working with the physician and 2 public health workers. There was a unique combination between the public hospital and the public health workers. So I like we're working together, a little bit different from what you might see here. And some pictures from our time up in the mountains. Here's a picture of a brand new public health center that's being built in the town that we hope when students return back, they can do maybe some more clinic work there as well. And here's a picture of one of our stations in our community health fair. And here's Janie doing some exercise. There was a lot of arthritis in the community. Students who went last year reported back on this, so she was doing a few exercises to help with. I believe this man had some lower back pain she was helping with. So just to summarize, I would like to thank everyone in support of the Dr. Kienle Center for Humanities, because without the financial support, the Global Health Program wouldn't be able to run. And I know out of all 6 of the scholars, they received some sort of funding through a scholarship through Penn State, so we really do appreciate that, and I think that the outcome will go beyond just what we have in this program, but will extend through our medical careers.
Any questions for Celeste?
By all means. So I wonder if both of you, this is reflection time. Sounds like that's the theme. I wonder if Celeste, you and Jordan could just give us a brief reflection on what you brought back from your experience. Talk a little bit about the place, a little bit, and then talk a little bit about the people and community, if you could.
So I think that one of the most significant, my reflection was kind of twofold, so I didn't really explain what I was doing there, but I was volunteering, kind of observing this program that was called the CCC program, and it's funded by the CDC, and it had basically been around for the past 10 years, and it just recently lost its funding, so it ended about 3 weeks ago. And it was a really successful program where they did comprehensive community care, and that was the CCC, focusing on HIV and AIDS education, treatment, and prevention in rural surrounding areas. So I got to spend, most days I would go out, 2 hours, 3 hours on roads that are not really meant to drive on at all or whatever, and go to a local clinic, collect some of the data, while also make sure that do quality control checks on the individuals, testing, and I was observing everything. Everything was done by a local Zambian worker that worked with the CCC program, and so I think part of what I took away was how incredible this program had been implemented, and how it just seemed really efficient and very well like nested into the culture and into the community, in a way that the stigma was like hardly even present in rural areas in terms of getting HIV tested. Like we went to a voluntary counseling and testing day, and you had people lining up at tents just to get HIV tests done, and they're talking about condoms and safer sex and you name it. Everything was on the table for discussion, and I think that shows a lot of progress, especially coming from Zambia, an area that had some of the worst rates of HIV, especially in rural areas. And that being said, part of my experience really showed me how frustrating, but also how necessary the international funding is, and how you kind of have to work within this balance of needing, the funding for the CDC completely enabled this program to really take root and sustain itself throughout the several years. But then, just like that, it's gone. And they have to do all kinds of restructuring and evaluation of how they can continue the same type of support services to their community without that funding. So I think that was a really important lesson in terms of global health, and just local programs in under-resourced areas. And I think also Boyd was somebody who really took it upon himself to show me around and show me his community and invite me into his family. And he really showed me what it's about to be passionate about engaging your community about issues that are very pertinent. And he has personal stories of people that are infected with HIV, and he didn't just let it end there. He took his time and would teach these sessions after class. So I think some days when I have a hard day at school, I just keep moving, because there's I have food and a family that loves me, and it's just really impressive to see all the work that he does, really as an individual, and it was just really an inspiration.
And through the Global Health Scholars Program, they actually require us, when we come back, to turn in at least 2 reflections per week while we're in country. And we're given prompts similar to what you have, Dr. Wolpaw, here, but actually, if you don't mind, I'd like to give those to Dr. Fredericks. I think there's some that would carry over really nicely. So we have some guided reflection, but also when I was there, I journaled every day and took that time that it wasn't in medical school to really reflect on the experience. And one situation that kind of stands out was sitting at the dinner table with the Kuchiparte family. My host mother had never gone to school a day in her life and spoke mostly Quechua, but was home preparing this meal. And I would sit down, and I remember that feeling of not being able to communicate how grateful I was to be there. And I think that will always stick with me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Appreciate it.
So Joe has something, but we have one other student here, Lisa Byers, who's, why don't you come on up?
Sure.
So Lisa's kind of just going to give us a little update on where we are with Wild Onions, another major project of the Kienle Center. So.
Yes. So thank you for having me tonight. So I'm a 4th year medical student. I'm also a class managing editor with Wild Onions, which is, I call it the literary magazine here, but they also accept photography and original works of art. And we put together a publication that comes out in the springtime that we publish every year. So I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about this year. Our theme is Dreams and Shadows. So that's kind of, we always have a theme every year to kind of inspire and guide people's submissions, kind of get the creative juices flowing, I guess. And then kind of our 2 overarching goals for this year are we have our submission deadline in late January, But we were kind of brainstorming ways this year to keep people engaged and kind of keep the creative process going, encourage submissions throughout the year. So we've decided we will have a few lunch lectures, and then we're going to kind of have like a creative writing brainstorming section where we do a little bit like, I don't know, word association and quick, like off-the-cuff writing exercises to kind of get people started on some projects. Our other goal for this year is to really have more patient submissions. They kind of dropped off in the last year. And I know we go to support groups as our main kind of face-to-face outreach. But we're still kind of trying to come up with good ways to engage people maybe in the clinic or maybe in the inpatient setting, and just get a wide variety of submissions from a wide variety of patients. So if you have any ideas there or insights as practitioners or community members, we welcome that, because we're still trying to come up with some better ways to get patients involved specifically. That's kind of all the updates I have for now.
So if I could just make one suggestion,
Yeah,
I won't
please.
say a word after this. You know, one of the things I'm just thinking about patient submissions, I wonder if we had an inexpensive way, you know, all of us in our clinics have, particularly for patients that we follow for a while, have a group of patients that we know have something that relates to literary backgrounds and the like. You know, if we had a card or something of that sort that would briefly explain the Wild Onions publication and the call for submission, that we could, you know, if you will, thoughtfully give out to certain patients. I bet you if you picked, you know, maybe 20 people in internal medicine or so that would volunteer, I would imagine we could probably identify, you know, 50 or so people that would, particularly in our population, who because of disease processes and things of that sort, would be prone to reflecting on some of the things that they've gone through. I bet you we could get you some submissions.
Absolutely.
So think about that.
Sure.
Thank
you.
It's a terrific.
Question, yeah. Any other?
I'll do one for.
Oh, thank you. That's great. Well, thank you for having me. Yes, please.
Is Wild Onions distributed all in any way to patients?
That's a good question. And I'm trying to think if, I know I see it all around the BMR and in the medical school. I feel like I have seen it, I have seen copies of it, you know, in the patient waiting rooms. And then we do have like a community outreach event that happens in spring where we have a lot of community members come and they can read their works or talk about their artwork. Can you speak to that at all, Dr. Paul?
I think it's a great idea. I mean, especially waiting rooms.
Yeah,
over in the UPC and things like that. I mean, I think we could make more of a concerted effort to distribute it to waiting rooms. I'm not sure we've done that consistently. I'm not aware of it if we have. So.
I'll make I'm in the hospital this week, so I'll...
And in family waiting areas, surgical waiting areas, ICU waiting areas, that kind of thing.
Hospital waiting areas.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
You could include both the cards describing it and a copy.
As well
so
as the
they can
copy.
see what it is.
The cards could be relatively simple, I think.
Yeah.
It could be just, you know, some contact information and just a short sentence.
I was going to ask if like a business card is too small, maybe something.
I think you could do it on a business
Not like a
card.
business card. Actually, if y'all had I mean, I don't want to get too fancy here, but if you had a website, you know, most of our patients have internet connections. So if you had just a little description, call for submissions, please think about reflections or whatever, you can come up with some thoughtful ideas. And then maybe if somebody could create for you a little offshoot off of the Kienle website, that they could go and get a little bit further information. It might be another layer, if you will. Pass along to your friends, things of that sort.
Great.
So think about those.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great.
Last but not least. Oh, Tim, you're up.
and get food.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
I wanted to, I guess this is the last, this is not the other, there's something else after this? Or?
No, I think this will be the last.
I wanted to tell you a bit about what we did last, actually May of 2014, that we never had an opportunity to report to the Kienle Center, although funded by the Chairs Fund. We had an opportunity to host 18 national and international folks. We had some folks from Venezuela, one person from Venezuela, one from England, at a symposium on clinical and pedagogical perspectives in which we essentially demonstrated the kinds of techniques pedagogically that we use to teach medical humanities. Not with the idea that we had the answer to this or we're doing it in the best way, but to open up a discussion of how this is medical humanities is best taught, and we learned from them as well as our telling them what we did. This included all sorts of activities, even some of the Kienle players. We did a staged reading, we had poetry readings, we had sessions on bullying by Cheryl De La Sega. We had Danny George presenting his time slips exercise for everyone. We had discussions by George Sims, Peter Lewis on the doctor-patient relationship. So our very rich 5 days, 6 days, I think we worked them very hard, and that was one of their complaints. Although they liked it, they said we had too much stuffed into that period of time. We also were, I think, blessed by having two very well-known writers, Perry Class and Danielle Ofrey, as keynote speakers. Actually, they gave their talk at Medical Grand Rounds, and then we had a session where they met with the attendees and answered their questions about their secrets of writing and that kind of thing. And spent the morning with us that morning. So we're looking ahead to something different in 2016, and that we're going to call the Penn State Medical Humanities Scholar Workshop. And this we envision as a group of select, a small number of scholars who work in disciplines related to medical humanities for an intensive 1-week experience. And this will be 6 individuals who are chosen competitively based on a proposal that they'll submit to us having to do with some area of medical humanities, be it art or history or whatever, medical education. We propose to have the proposals reviewed by the relevant medical humanities faculty person working in the area that their proposal addresses, and that we then pair the people chosen for this with a mentor in the humanities faculty to work with them over the week. The days being spent in the mornings working on a project, meeting with their mentor. The afternoons being spent in workshops where they present their proposals and get feedback from the other people that are attending. And at the end of the week to present a finalized version of the project. But of course this isn't the end, because they will then regularly communicate, hopefully, with their mentors throughout the year. This is sort of in the format of the Harvard Macy education program, where folks have a relationship with Harvard for several months as they're completing a project in medical education. So in this case, it would be in the medical humanities. We have sufficient funds to actually pay all of their expenses in addition to providing an honorarium for them. And this will come both from the Kienle Center funds to the chair, as well as some input from the Department of Humanities in terms of the honorarium. We are planning this for the last week of May 2016, thinking that that's a good time for academics. They're finishing their academic year. They haven't yet started their vacations. Our medical center is the rooms are available. It's much easier to schedule things during that time period. The recipients will be given an official title that will be Penn State Medical Humanities Scholar, sponsored by the Kienle Center. So your question for us is why do we do this? It's a lot of work. It was a tremendous amount of work to put together the symposium last year. And at the end of it, I questioned whether I really want to do it again because of the amount of work. But we think that there are potential great rewards for us in that we may be attracting people who would want to come here to do sabbaticals, even postdoctoral training, and maybe would come as visiting scholars for a month or that kind of thing. We also think this has a great opportunity to enhance our national reputation and the knowledge of what we do and the reputation of the Kienle Center for Humanistic Medicine. So we presented this to the humanities faculty, and of course they would be the individuals working with these people. So they would be actually involved with a week's worth of work plus follow-up, and most, if not all, have said that they would be willing to do this, engage with these individuals. So that's what we're planning to do for May 2016, and any suggestions you may have how we do this, we're glad to receive. Any questions? Okay,
Thanks.
Great, thanks.
Any other thoughts or comments? I was going to try to enlist you all to think about better ways to arrive at our humanities awardees, but we ran out of time, and I'm not sure. It's a tough subject anyway, so we can take that up in another meeting.